You value your privacy and security, yet you don't even know what that looks like. Here's some advice coming from someone who's worked as a professional ethical hacker for 15 years now. Self-hosting is the only way to have any sort of control over your privacy, your security, or your data. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to get into self-hosting. If you want to learn more about self-hosting, Linux, as well as cybersecurity and ethical hacking, please subscribe and give me a follow. You are only going to need 3 things: a USB stick of your choice, a computer to do your work from, as well as any old laptop or desktop that you want to use to run your lab environment. Whichever device you use for your lab, you need to consider 2 things. 1, you don't want it to have any sort of valuable data on it because we're going to be erasing it completely. 2, many of the future projects we're going to be working on will require that this device remains on 24/7. So in the case that it dies, make sure that the device you choose is not important to you. On that topic, real quick, let me talk about the difference between computers and servers. Computers, such as laptops and desktops, are meant to have a user operating them and are not designed to be on 24/7, only for a certain amount of time per day. Leaving them on can be very bad for them. The solution to this is to get a hold of a server, like with what you see behind me. Servers are a lot hardier, they're designed to be on 24/7, and they have a lot more memory and hard drive space, which is crucial to a home lab. Now, all of that being said, for somebody who is just starting out, a laptop or a desktop is going to be fine, especially while you are learning. The only thing you don't want to do is have a bunch of important data stored away on this device. Save that for when you get your first server. Now, before we begin, I want to give you a very brief overview of what an operating system is. You've heard of different types of operating systems before, things like macOS, iOS, Windows, Linux, etc. I am going to assume that you have Windows built into your laptop right now. If you're new, then you may assume that laptops and desktops and servers all have one operating system installed to them. This is true for some of them, but not all. Now let's imagine that you bought a very expensive server and it has 3,000 gigabytes of hard storage as well as 128 gigabytes of RAM. If you only installed Windows or only installed Linux to it, then clearly that would be a huge waste of potential. You may be thinking, okay, Luke, well, what's the solution? What if I told you that you could run more than one operating system on the same computer at any given time? This process is known as virtualization, and it takes a specialized operating system to do it. These operating systems are known as hypervisors. There are many different types of hypervisors, and it's what many of the world's largest tech companies use to extend the use and capabilities of all of their systems. What hypervisors do is they allow you to run multiple virtual machines of Linux or Windows or any OS that you want, all on the same computer. Let's say that you are using a laptop for your home lab, which has 16 gigabytes of RAM and 500 gigabytes of storage. You can tell the hypervisor, hey, I want to give a Linux machine 4 gigabytes of RAM and 100 gigabytes of my 500 gigabyte storage capacity. When you turn this machine on, your network will register it as if it's any other computer. The way you access these operating systems is typically through a web interface that you access over your network. If you've ever had to access your router's web page before to adjust settings, then you will see that this feels very similar. All that being said, any machine that you choose to virtualize can also be accessed over the network in whatever way you choose. And I'll show you how to do that in another video. Now, if you're thinking this is way too much or you're overwhelmed, stop right there, because one thing I can promise you is that I have your back, and once you get through this, you will be that much better at it. Now, without further ado, I say we begin. The first thing we're going to do is download an amazing tool called Ventoy, and you're going to take Ventoy with you throughout your home lab career. Once Ventoy is downloaded, simply right-click and hit Extract All to extract it. Now, before we continue, go ahead and plug your USB into the computer you're using. After the USB is plugged in, come into the unextracted Ventoy file and make sure that you run ventoy to disk.exe. Now, it's likely harder for you to see this than it is for me, but what you're going to want to do is you want to make sure that right here you have your USB selected. Once it is selected, all you have to do is hit install. Once Ventoy has worked its magic, you will see an empty drive pop up. Mine is not empty because I have a operating system file in it. More on that later. The next thing we're going to do is download our hypervisor. For all of my Homelab projects, I love to use Proxmox. It's one of the best, it's free, it's open source, it is absolutely amazing. Be sure to check the description for direct links to both Proxmox and Ventoy. Now, once you're on the Proxmox downloads page, right here under this latest release where it says VE 9.2 ISO installer, you just want to click download. From here, you can do two things. You can either download it directly to the Ventoy USB that we created earlier, or if you want to keep a copy of it, you can download it to the downloads folder or wherever else and copy it over to Ventoy. Real quick, if you don't know what an ISO file is, it is basically a file that contains what is needed to install an operating system to a host. You will get very comfortable and familiar with these throughout many of my courses. Now that we have Proxmox downloaded directly to Ventoy, we can go ahead and eject the USB device. We are now going to take the Ventoy USB and plug it directly into our lab device. But first, I want you to consider plugging your lab device directly into your router with an Ethernet cable. One really cool feature of Proxmox is that you can establish a connection to it over Wi-Fi if you choose so. The problem with this is that it is going to pass clear text credentials over your airspace, meaning that anybody can sniff them out. What I am saying is that you may end up giving your username and password plus other data away to those people around you and you don't even know it. The only solution to this is having what's known as an internal certificate authority to establish HTTPS connections between devices. And this is a whole other video for more advanced users. Therefore, I highly recommend that you plug your lab device directly into your router. It will stop those clear text credentials from going over the airspace. However, they can still be viewed on the local network, and I will show you how to deal with all of this at another video. So this here is our lab device, which I have plugged in with an Ethernet cord, like I mentioned, as well as a power source. We are simply going to plug in our USB while it is turned off, and then we are going to turn it on. You are then going to press F12 repeatedly. Now this button may actually be very different depending on what version or what hardware your computer uses. For Dell's, F12 is pretty much the common default. For something like HP's, I believe it's F11, but I could be wrong. You will need to research this yourself. Now on this computer, you can see that I already have Proxmox installed, but if we don't have it installed, we will typically come down to the Ventoy USB stick and select it so we can boot from it. This is what I have right here, but Proxmox requires that we disable a certain setting known as secure boot, so we are going to have to figure out how to do that. In this case, I'm going to go into the BIOS setup. I now have secure boot turned off, in which case I will just apply the settings and reboot the computer. I pressed the F12 key to come back to this interface, and now what I'm going to do is on this boot menu here, I'm going to access the USB stick that we flashed Ventoy to. We have now booted into Ventoy, and I will be able to show you what is really cool about this. Typically, USB sticks can only have one operating system flashed to them at a time. And rather than wasting a bunch of USBs, Ventoy allows you to put a bunch of different ISO files on one USB, and when you go to boot from it, you can select which one you want to install. In my case, I'm going to select Proxmox, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to boot in normal mode. And this is the Proxmox interface. We are going to select the very first option, which is install Proxmox and the graphical version. After the previous screen is done, you're just going to come here and click I agree. And then you're going to select the hard drive that you want to install Proxmox to. In my case, this computer has a 256 gigabyte hard drive installed, and I'm just going to leave it on that. My one big thing is make sure that you don't accidentally select your Ventoy USB to install to by mistake. On the next interface, you're going to want to input your country so the computer understands what time zone you're in. Now here is where you're going to set the root, aka admin password, for all of Proxmox. You do not want this password to be a password that you have used previously, and you want to make sure that it is strong. You will have to remember this password, so be sure to write it down. You can put technically anything you want in as the email address, but I would give it something legitimate just in case you decide to set up alerts and notifications in the future. Here's where you're going to set up the Proxmox web interface. Now what this one right here, Nico, as you can see it, this is this cord plugged into this interface right here. You can see if I select this, that you are able to see NIC1, which also is clearly our built-in Wi-Fi chip. Your management interface, which is something that you are going to want to protect ultimately, is going to appear on whichever one of these you choose. In my case, I am opting in for the hardwired connection we have over here. Now, for the fully qualified domain name, aka the host name, you can actually put whatever you want. This is more so for advanced users. If you had a network card selected automatically, then it means that Proxmox picked it up on its own. It likely already has the correct IP address space, in which case mine is 192.168.100.2. You can pretty much typically leave all of these as default, but if you need to figure out what your IP address space is on your router, then you are going to need to pull up command prompt and type ipconfig and use the IPv4 address space. If you ask AI, it will help you through this entire process. Once all of this looks good, you are simply going to let it install. Now, I do want to make a disclaimer. My network setup is insane. You are likely going to see some things that are a little bit different than what I say. For instance, I just said that my address space was 192.168.100.1/24, when in fact it was not, and Proxmox did not pick up on it correctly. So there are a few things that you can do to circumvent this. One, you can ask AI and it will absolutely guide you through this. Two, you can join the Discord, message my group, and I will reply to you directly. Coming from many years of hacking experience and having built a really solid career in it, the majority of my job is simply figuring things out. You are no different. Homelabbing, networking, whatever it is you do in tech, a lot of it really just comes with muscle memory, and that means having a solid home lab, going through all of the woes, going through all of the issues, and really figuring it out for yourself. That is what's going to make you better. Now, this video has gone on very long, and I want you to know that I will be releasing a follow-up video showing you how to use Proxmox. But before I go, I am going to show you how to access the web interface. Once Proxmox reboots after install, you will be greeted with this interface. That HTTPS followed by the IP address and the port number is how you access your Proxmox interface. You will simply copy this and put it into a web browser on your admin machine. You will be greeted with the Proxmox login web interface. The username will be root and the password will be what you set up earlier during the install of Proxmox. In the next series of videos, I will be showing you how to use Proxmox. If you like what you saw here today, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you need assistance, hit me up in Discord or drop a comment.